Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Chapter, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Fine Arts and Communication here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon. I'm the host of the podcast. In each episode, we feature an alumnus from one of our programs in the college. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Jason Hawkins, a 2003 graduate from the School of Music. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Buzz. Thanks for having me.
Well, a greatly deserved discussion here because you are so connected with WIU in different ways, and we're going to get to that. But let's just give everybody a life update. What's going on? Obviously, you got some Western apparel on.
Yep. Yeah, I thought I better represent today. So yeah, I'm a professor in the School of Music, teaching music education and choirs. So I do kind of multiple different roles in the School of Music, but that's my main focus is choral music education. This is my 5th year now, going on 6th year at Western. But I did my undergrad here in the 90s, so I came back to Western. I liked it so much, I chose it twice. I tell all of our recruits.
And that's, as also a WIU grad that has worked here at WIU, there's just something about it, that, and it certainly helps with your credibility with the students. And we're going to talk about your wonderful program and all the things that you're involved with. But let's go back to your childhood, because I think you're from Stillman Valley. Is that
That's
right?
right. Yep, little tiny town. I think when I was there, the population was 800 or so. It's gotten a little bigger, but not much. Similar to Western Illinois, but consolidated schools. Grew up on a farm, not unlike lots of Western grads. So yeah, it's actually the same town. I don't know if you've done a podcast with Jana. Her maiden name was Poliska, but now Nup. She's in the School of Agriculture or Department of Ag. Yeah, we grew up like half a mile from each other, and then both ended up here at Western teaching. So
yeah, that's a great, and when you mentioned that, I thought, well, I do know her, and she's terrific. So there must be something about the water around there,
yeah, we'll
or the land.
Put her on your list. She's a great person and has a great family here, and went to Western like I did, and then loved it so much that she stayed and is making her career here too.
So what was it like growing up on a farm? And you must have really, it must have been a family sort of, because I'm not sure where you were located on the farm, but you have to find ways to entertain yourself, or maybe you had family members.
Yeah, so my farm experience, I guess, was a little different than some. Jana, for sure, like they were hardcore farmers. We grew up on the farm, had 87 acres of land and pasture and a forest with a creek running through it. So it was great as a kid to get that experience. We didn't make our full living farming. My dad kind of did that on the side. He always worked blue collar, did welding and maintenance supervising in factories. So that was part of my first experience in the workforce was working in an aluminum foundry. So I've been there, and my dad said, if nothing else, like follow and do what you love, and you don't have to spend your whole life in a factory. And so I did, and I had a very supportive family to go into music and music education. But yeah, I really enjoyed my small town roots growing up outside of I think we had 90 or so in my graduating class. So I often tell, again, recruits coming into Western that I think that students like me do well at a place like Western, a mid-sized university where we have a lot of opportunities of a big university, a lot, big music majors. I think we're the 5th largest department in the college. Biggest major, a lot of opportunities, but still, you feel at home in a small town like Macomb, and right. You don't feel overwhelmed like you're in downtown Chicago. So I feel that I found a great place in Western in that way from my childhood.
So when did music enter into your life to where you kind of said, I like doing what I'm doing, because you're so talented in so many different ways? At some point, how did music get introduced to you?
Yeah. Well, my family has always been musical in an amateur way. Everyone took piano lessons, and there would be piano duets at Christmas time, and we had a small church. About I don't know, 50 in the congregation in this
Hmm.
small town called Lindenwood, Illinois. 40 of them were probably my family members in some way. Large farm families. My grandma had, I think, 10 brothers and sisters. My grandpa had 15 brothers and sisters. So big extended family.
Wow.
And music always played a part in that, whether it was, in the church or just around the piano at family gatherings. So it's always kind of been in my blood. And, I loved it in high school. I had two choir directors throughout my high school and middle school career, both Western grads, which,
Nice.
played a role into me going into music, of course. So really involved in the high school, music program, band and choir, and sports too. I mean, at a small school like that, you do everything, right?
Right.
So I, played basketball and ran track and did all of the music things and the musical and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where it started, really. I guess my mom was my first music teacher and taught me piano from an early age, and then moved on to high school music, and then Western music camps. I'm a big proponent of the camps, which are starting right now. So, little plug for Western Summer Music Institute. Went to those camps and loved it, and went to some other Western events as well, which again showed me how much Western cares for their students and how much they have to offer. So Western definitely played a role in all of my music experience too.
So you must have been exposed to some WIU professors while you were coming over to the camps.
Yep.
Yeah. Was there anybody that you said, okay, well, this person is somebody I might want to study with?
Yeah, for sure. James Stegall was, probably one of my biggest mentors, who has retired, and I actually now my office is his old office, so that's one of those weird things coming
Yeah.
back to Western as a professor with some of my old professors, who have now, many of them have now retired. But yeah, James Stegall was definitely one. Bruce Briney, who is still
Oh,
here, I think nearing the end of his tenure here at
wonderful,
Western
Bruce.
after 30 some years. And so him as a trumpet player, I sing but also have a degree in trumpet, so that was very influential. Great player and great person and great teacher. So those two were some of my most influential ones. I remember meeting Dale Hopper in Brown Hall. Those of you who haven't, aren't familiar with Dale Hopper of the new generation, might not know him, but he was director of the marching band and director of the bands at Western for many years. Great guy. I ended up playing in JSO and playing in jazz bands with him. So, that was definitely influential when I met him when I came to audition, and John Dougal. So lots of those guys.
So you graduated and you decide to come to WIU, and you're gonna at some point you must have decided you wanted to become a teacher because you major in music ed, right?
Yeah.
So how did that? How do you think that was? That just because you had a love of music and you thought I might be interested in teaching as well?
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I always, kind of felt the leadership role of a teacher, but I did struggle with what to do with music. And so I actually started as a double major in music therapy and music education
Okay.
with Bruce Pruder, who was the music therapy director at the time. And I took the intro course to both music ed and music therapy. And I love and respect all that music therapists do. And Western's music therapy department is, second to none. So one of two in the school in the state. And so great, expanding, and we have a new master's coming up in the music therapy area. So I respect the profession so much, but decided for me I felt more called to music ed after a year of kind of experimenting with both. Which again is something that's great about the music therapy program. Is I worked with an autistic girl while I was even in my first year to give me kind of a feel of what music therapy was like, and I just felt called the other direction where someone may have said no, I really love the music therapy side of things. So but after that I felt very comfortable as an educator. Am doubly endorsed in both instrumental and choral, and decided to go the choral route when I got a job in Plainfield, where I spent 12 years as the director of the choirs there. Again, another Western connection, Matt Schlesinger. I don't know if you ever met him. He was a tenor and a trombone player a couple years ahead of me. He was choir director at Plainfield Central High School and said, hey, we have this opening. And so it was another Western connection that got my job in Plainfield, where I stayed for 12 years, opened Plainfield North High School, which was the third high school in that district. There's now 4. They opened Plainfield East too, so 30,000 students in that school district up in the Chicago suburbs. So again, far cry from my small town roots in Stillman Valley, Illinois. But it was a great experience to open the school, literally put together the choir risers and put together the cabinets. And I remember watching the building being built, and being the first teachers in there in the summer, chasing mice out as we tried to set up our classrooms. So really awesome experience. And then it just was very serendipitous that a Western person led me to that. And then the job here at Western opened up while I was finishing my PhD, and so then I came back.
Well, we'll focus a little bit more. I've got some questions about what it's like to be a high school music ed teacher, because I think there's some interesting stories there. But let's go back to WIU, because, I think very so highly of you, Jason, that, you can sing, you have multiple instruments that you have to play, and you must have been very popular in the ensembles, and every group must have wanted you to be part of them. How did you decide? Because here you are deciding music ed, music therapy, but you're also having to decide so many great opportunities for you to be a part of these groups. How did you make those decisions?
Sure. Well, you're too kind, Buzz, and I'll try to stay humble. But yeah, I mean, I guess I could never make up my mind on what I wanted to do when I grew up, or what I wanted to be when I grew up, besides teaching. So I played and sang in many groups. I did the University Singers, which is the top group here at Western, which was wonderful with James Stegall. Sang in the opera program. Lynn Thompson and Matt Bean directed a lot of that. Lynn Thompson just graduated, so you know him well as being a Wesley person. Buzz and I both attend Wesley United Methodist Church, where Lynn's the choir director and music minister. So, I remember doing the Mikado with them, and a lot of great experiences on the vocal side of things, but then also loved playing my trumpet, even though nowadays I play in the municipal band 3 times a year, so I don't get to play my trumpet as much as I want to. But yeah, I played in the wind ensemble and the marching band and orchestra for a little bit. But I remember, one of my great memories are the marching band under Dale Hopper. I played his last year, which would have been, I think, 98. And yeah, there was 201 kids in the band at that time for Dale's last year directing the marching band, which was awesome. And the band now is great too, but I remember that being pivotal in my experience. I think we had 32 trumpets in that band, which was awesome. And playing for playoff games. I remember one playoff game where it was snowing in November. The football team was good at that time too. The end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, the football team was really playing well, and so it was fun. Really great games, well attended. We played at the TWA Dome in St. Louis once. So those were great experiences. But yeah, I never really did focus once. But I think that's a recommendation to some young future leathernecks is, there's a lot to do here, so take advantage of it. You don't want to be so busy that you're stressed out all the time, but
Right.
you only get one undergraduate experience, so soak it all in. And I took 5 years to finish at Western with my double endorsement. But it was worth it, and nobody even knows or cares now that I spent 5 years in college. I guess it's a little different now that I could afford to do that when college was a little less expensive.
Right.
But still, like, if you can do it, it's all those experiences made me a better musician, a better teacher, a better person, a better dad. So yeah, lots of experiences Western gave me.
And you even mentioned some fun things, which you lived over in Corbin Hall,
Yep,
and you
Corbin
and some
5.
friends went over to took some some trays from the cafe, and then used them to do some sledding, even you
Yeah, you
things
read
like
my
that.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time. I mean, everything was kind of crazy in the dorms, but still, it's fun to come back and remember those times. Yeah, we took the cafeteria trays from Corbin Cafe and like slid down Hanson Field. I think the drum line still does something like they took like, old drum heads and slide down the field there. But I mean, it's just fun stuff like that when you're a kid, or with Phi Mu Alpha was another
Yeah.
experience that I had. The music fraternity on campus. A lot of marching band guys in there, and we did a lot of service opportunities. We went to Wesley Village and sang for the residents, and did lots of like helping people move their pianos when they move to a different house, and some grunt work to as service to the community and to the university. But a lot of it was just having fun with guys that have similar interests to you. And so there's a lot of things I won't mention, but a lot of fun in those times. Same thing with the marching band. Man, like marching band could throw some good parties when we were 200 people big.
Well, there's something about that social aspect, though, that I think helps our music students
Yeah,
succeed, because it's higher education can be tough sometimes
yeah.
for a kid, and to have the desire to want to maintain
Hmm.
those kind of relationships will motivate people to continue through difficult times, and
Sure.
that's what it's really I love about you when you talk about marching band or the fraternity. Those kind of things are what will help you, and I'm sure will help our current students as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I never felt like I was an outsider coming into Western, and it helped that I knew a couple people coming into from camps and things like that. But yeah, as a music person, you instantly have, a tribe, as they say nowadays, right? Is that you come in and you have some people that are like-minded, where I couldn't imagine coming in to college and knowing that I like science or knowing that I like math, but not knowing how I want to use that or where I fit in. And so I'm really blessed that I felt a calling to music and felt a calling to education in many different ways. Where like my daughter, she has music and loves band and choir too, but she's going in to be a sophomore, driver's ed next year.
Oh,
Who knows if she'll go to Western. Right now, she wants to stay at home and loves, living with mom and dad, but that may change in the next couple of years. But anyway, it's hard to decide when you're 14 or 18 even
yeah.
what you want to do for the rest of your life. So yeah, I totally agree with you that those experiences and getting involved in things like a fraternity or church or some sort of social aspect really does help you stay grounded and enjoy your college experience.
So tell me how you met Laura Powers.
Yeah, so I met my wife here at Western too. Maiden name is Powers, and her dad was Don Powers. I don't know if you really got to know Don that well or not, but
No.
he just retired a couple years ago from Western, was a science professor here, and spent his whole career at Western, and that's what brought Laura. I think in the '80s, she was a Macomb homie, and went through Macomb school system, and then we met her freshman year, my sophomore year. Part of it was through the church. I was director of the Newman Center choir on campus, the Catholic choir, even though I'm not Catholic. But was hired to lead the choir there and the kind of praise team that they had. And she was attending, and so we met, through Western and through the church. She did marching band too and played clarinet in the band. So yeah, and we're almost to 20 years now. It'll be next year. We've been married. So met my wife at Western. We did our first date at,
Yeah, I want to hear about the first date.
yeah, we did our first date in the Sandberg Theater back when they used to show, I think it was dollar movies in the 90s. You could go and watch a movie in the Sandberg Theater. Any new students who haven't been to the basement of the Union, there's a theater down there. Actually, I think they've been doing classes since
They
COVID.
have.
But yeah, they used to show movies once a week. I think it was The Sixth Sense or something like that. We watched was our first date. She came and met me at Corbin because she was still living at home. Met me at Corbin Hall, and we went over with a couple of friends and watched a dollar movie connected through the church and through music things but that's always an interesting story to tell people. They're like, wow, I didn't even know we had a theater. There was a bowling alley down there too, people, if you didn't know. We used to go bowling at the bowling alley in the basement of Western. So I'm sad that still isn't open, but yeah.
That's how that friendship started.
Yep, it started, and then we got married right out of college. She ended up graduating a semester before me, so we got married that summer, and then I student taught at Hinsdale South High School with Brett Goad, another Western grad. He's been the president of the Alumni Council and really involved in lots of things at Western. So another huge Western connection in my life, who still is. And then I student taught with him while Laura was already teaching in Antioch, and drove around the suburbs for a semester. And yeah, we spent a little time there up in the northern suburbs before I got the job in Plainfield after student teaching. And then she came down with me and taught for a couple years. She was an L-Ed major and taught fifth grade, not music, but just fifth grade general, everything. I mean, she worked harder than I did, teaching all the subjects. And then she retired when we had our first daughter, Hannah, and has stayed home taking care of the kids ever since then.
Well, before we talk about your first teaching job, are there any other professors or people that you really felt were important to your development before you took that job?
Yeah, I mean, all of them really. I mean, it's sad in a way to see that almost all of them have retired. Besides Bruce and Eric Ginsberg, I guess, is still around. There's a couple that started at Western when I was here. Kevin Nichols, who's the percussion professor and coordinator of the marching percussion. So he was one that I think started. Chris Lapka, who is now retired, was probably one of the other more influential professors. She was elementary music ed, and our relationship built up even more after I graduated, since I was focused on high school and teaching high school. But then we reconnected more as I started to think about teaching college. So she was really the one. She was a Western grad in music ed and music therapy, and then taught a while and came back to Western. We were freshmen together. She was a professor the same year I started at Western in the 90s. But it was after I had graduated and been teaching for a while that she said, you'd be a great college professor. And I said, well, I don't know. I really like my high school teaching. So she was one that encouraged me. I took a sabbatical from my high school job. Very fortunate to be able to do that. They saved my job for me while I spent a year and 2 summers at the University of Illinois doing all the coursework for a PhD in music ed. And then went back to Plainfield for a couple of years, worked on my dissertation. And then this job at Western came open, the choral music ed job. And Chris encouraged me to apply and wrote a letter for me. And, again, kind of helped me to see how I could cast my net farther as a college professor, influencing future music educators and then all the students that they encounter, even though I love the light bulb moment and I always feel like I'll be like a high school choir director at heart. Mm-hmm. And I love that moment when a freshman gets it or we hit that chord and they just, have that musical moment as a young musician. For me now to be able to shape that experience and make sure that good music educators are going out into the schools, helps me have even further reach. So Chris was able to help me realize that. And again, very serendipitous that I came back into Western. Was the only job that I applied for. I wasn't sure totally that I wanted to leave my job in Plainfield. But it definitely was the right decision. But we packed up the whole family and came back to Laura's hometown. Grandma and Grandpa are just around the corner. So the kids can ride their bikes to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Her sister's a registrar here, Sarah Lawson. And Scott Lawson is one of the webmasters on campus. So huge Western connection with her family and me. But yeah, lots of great experiences and feel very lucky to be able to have had this, trajectory.
Yeah. And well, first of all, I did not know Chris did that all for you. That's terrific. Yeah. And, that really shows about how people come into other people's life and they're probably not aware of it, but they, send you off in a positive way, just as I'm sure that you are doing for lots of other people that you're not even aware of. You won't be until you get older. And
right. Yeah, I hope so. And, that's something that I got from her is that, I tell my students I'm their teacher for life, not just this one, music 105, and they might come back to me, and they do even now, even though I've been here 5 years, I have students who have gotten out into the field and say, oh my gosh, I'm doing this and I don't know what to do. Help me. And I say, here we go. I've done this before. Like, let's figure it out together. So yeah, I think so too. And, through the master's program, we transitioned our master's program here at Western to be 100% online. Pre-COVID, we were cool before we were online before it was cool. But online on purpose is our tagline. So we transitioned it because we felt that current music educators who might have a job that they love like I did might not want to quit their full-time job and come back to a school. And because I feel that we can actually do it more effectively online because they have a lab of guinea pig kids right there in front of them. So they can learn something from my class Sunday night online and then apply it Monday morning. We do a lot of video back and forth with those students. We have 30 or 35 students in the program in our master's online. So it's been really successful for us as a music department and for them to be able to do that. So we've had many students from that program go on to great things. 2 right now are in their PhDs. So that has been a fun process for me to guide someone who finished their master's and then wants more. So we've had successful Western grads who are now out there doing their doctorate degree, which is pretty cool to have that relationship with them. It's similar to what Chris Lapka had for me starting my higher ed degree.
Well, it does show your character, though, Jason. It shows how there are people that will in this life that you meet that are takers, and you're somebody that realized what you were given and have returned that gift in many ways because you're seeing how that has impacted you. You talked a little bit about coming back and teaching and I think it's so important what you all do in music about how not only with your students, but with the people that are, like you mentioned, in other programs and other high schools. It's all about the relationships, because somebody may say, I'm going to send this student that is in my program to WIU to study with you because I know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one thing that helps us be successful at Western. Are connections that we have with high school teachers, alumni. I think that's a big thing about Western, is that that's what got me to Western. We're Western alumni that showed me all the great things about Western. So I try to be an advocate for Western, not just because I work here now, but because it's a great school. Again, I would, as a high school choir director, always send students to a university like Western. It doesn't always have to be Western. I send a lot of kids to ISU too, even though they're our big rival now as far as recruitment goes. But there's just something about this. I call it the Goldilocks effect, right? Is it's big enough to have lots of opportunities, but still small enough. Big school resources, small school personality. So yeah, I think that's really important, and try to encourage students to have that great experience that I had. So,
and the benefit for you as a teacher, I'm sure, like you said, and I've seen you at work with your choirs, and the way that they look at you, and they're because when you're able to get them to bring out the best that they can be at that period of time, there is such a joy, and it's probably nonverbal in some ways, and I'm sure that they also say things to you about how appreciative they are, but you can see it reflected in their performances.
Well, I'm glad that you could notice it, Buzz. And you're a very musical person, even though you don't sing in a choir either. but we always appreciate your support so much. But yeah, lots of it is nonverbal, which is interesting to pick up on, not only in the instruction, right? Like lots of times we'll model something, or, even just with our gesture as a musician, can make such an impact and save time in a rehearsal when you only have 50 minutes 3 times a week for my concert choir. But yeah, that's been something that's been great. I'm directing the concert choir here at Western, which is our Y'all Come Sing, we call it. Open to anyone, lots of non-majors. There are majors in there too. And, some of our talent grant students who are, top of their class. But it really is a great group, and we're really excited to see it grow again after COVID. COVID was really hard for our music ensembles when they said,
sure,
you can't have 50 or whatever people in one place at one time. We had to divvy them all up, so we had small little groups of about a dozen spread out throughout the music area, and my graduate assistants and I rotated among them all during COVID. But then we're really excited when we were able to. This past year, they relaxed a little bit on those requirements, and we were able to have 75 students back in COFAC. We used COFAC instead of one of our music rehearsal rooms. So my last soprano was all the way at the back of the 500-seat hall because we still had them spread as much as we could. So yeah, we were excited to see them come back, and this past group has been wonderful, even with masking and all of that, which has been a challenge, right? With something like a musical art where facial expression is so important. They were still able to get their music and the expression across, even with just the upper half of their face and their voices through a mask. But it is a great art, and I've always felt called. I always feel that choir is the ultimate instrument. Is that when I play my trumpet, I can make it sound a bit different and brighter or darker, and the style with which I play. But the choir is just such a versatile instrument to play as a conductor. They can have we do pop music, we do jazz music, we do world music, we do old classical stuff. Such a wide variety, and the voice can just change in timbre and style, infinitesimally. So it's a wonderful experience. I'm glad that you notice all of that on the other end of it.
Well, there was something, I think in the last year when I went to the performances, you don't realize how much you miss it until you're there. And then when you hear And it's like, I mean, no offense. We're talking virtually right now. We're doing this over Zoom, but there's something about being in the presence of talented people and hearing the voices and the instruments and everything come together that it just moves the spirit.
Yeah, yeah, and we were really glad to be back in person. I mean, there were some, benefits to the COVID times. It helped some new and young musicians become more independent when they were often, the only person on their part. When there's only two sopranos and then one of them sick because they, were quarantined, and then okay, today you're the only soprano. Here we go. So they built a lot of independence, and for me as a music ensemble leader, we did a couple of virtual choirs. If you've seen those, Brady Bunch style, squares on the screen, with my, 50, I think we had at that time, or 55 in the choir of those small little groups. The only way we were able to be together was to send in individual recordings. So they recorded in their dorm rooms on their cell phones. I made a like click track where they could stay together in time. They would listen to the click track and sing their part, send it to me, and then I put them all together, which is a challenge in itself, to have the audio and visual, I guess, challenge of figuring out the how to get all those voices to sound good together and to produce a video. So I'm not hankering to do another one of those anytime soon.
Yeah.
But it was fun to get to hear the experience for a year, and then now we're glad to be back in and hopefully this next year without masks. So that is the plan.
Well, I'm so proud of not only you, Jason, but all the faculty within our college that, they just found ways to adapt. And that's it's a sign of somebody wanting to not settle, with when faced with that problem that you all said, we need to figure this out.
Yeah, well, and I mean, a lot of help from people like you on the administrative side too. We feel very supportive. Jeff Brown was wonderful throughout all of that experience, and Billy Clow and you to help us be able to, still function during that time. Where lots of schools, I have colleagues at other colleges who were, fully remote way longer than us, and had even when some of the rest of their classes went back in person, still choirs weren't able to. So we were glad we were able to do it safely and keep the kids safe, and still give them an in-person experience this past year.
One other thing I really want to salute about your move back to Macomb, Jason, is you found a way to connect with the community. As you mentioned, I know that you're involved with the Wesley Church and with giving back and helping with the music program. Is there more to that? You must have some personal satisfaction.
Sure.
In the motivation for why you do that.
Yeah, I've always been a church musician, even since my early days. I think I started singing in church choir with my grandpa when I was 12.
Nice.
Singing tenor, high tenor, at that time. With my grandpa, who was a bass, sitting right next to me in a small town church choir. So I've always been a church musician. Led the band and the choir at a Methodist church in the suburbs when I was in Plainfield. And then it's funny, I actually decided with my family, we tried out a couple different churches here in town when we came back. But I landed at Wesley, partly because I sang at Wesley when I was a student at Western, with Marcia Molden, who was the choir director at that time, and Sarah Rudenhouse. Is that how you say her last name?
Rudenhouse.
So she was there for 1 year, my last year. But they have an internship program, and I think I got paid like $500 a semester, which was huge money to me at the time in the 90s. I'm like, whoa, you guys are going to pay me to come to church? So I sang in the church choir as an intern, kind of a section leader. They hire music majors to come, and it's a scholarship actually through the foundation. So it's both of those ways, getting a little money, but also being able to have a scholarship opportunity, and keeps you honest as a undergrad. On Sunday morning, you have to go to church at 8 in the morning, so you try to behave yourself a little more on Saturday night. But yeah, that was part of our return to Wesley was again back to my experiences with the church while I was a student. And we decided I would just be a congregant, someone sitting in the pews for a while. And we did that for a year or so, it seems like. And then the opportunity came and I got called to direct the praise band. So I always feel comfortable on the chancel, on the stage. I feel like that's the way I do church. I enjoy sitting and listening to a good sermon, but I get more fulfillment of from being there, helping lead the worship experience. So yeah, that led me to Wesley. I like being involved in the community through the band boosters and choir boosters. My daughters are both in band and choir. Olivia just started saxophone, my 10-year-old. So if you hear loud noises coming from upstairs, that's Olivia. She knows 5 notes now on the saxophone. Hannah plays clarinet and does color guard in the marching band. So we're involved in that way and love the music program. Melanie Butcher, who's the choir director at Macomb, went to school with me at Western. She was just a couple years ahead.
She's terrific.
So yeah, terrific. And Doug Matsey, even though he's an ISU grad, we still really appreciate all he does. And wonderful guy. We're lucky that even with a small mid-sized city like this, they have a great music program with lots of resources from the university. So yeah, I love being involved in the community in that way, and doing summer music camp is another way to connect with the community for me. Our kids really appreciate being in a university town. I mean, it seems like every weekend there's something for them to do, whether it's the art, the little art workshops that they have, the art department. We've done a number of those. Olivia's going to do a volleyball camp at Western this summer. There's a million things. College for Kids, I think it's called, experience at Western, where they can come and try a whole bunch of different things. The Macomb Art, MAC, Macomb Art Council, or whatever, the downtown where they have the, all of that stuff. So there's been a whole bunch of things that my kids have been able to do, which we appreciate as parents.
Well, the whole Hawkins family has been a blessing for not only WIU, but for the Macomb community. And we're glad that you guys came back. How's that?
Well, thanks.
And Jason, we always like to conclude with a question about, and you've given some breadcrumbs along for, I think, students that might be able to know, but what kind of recommendation would you have for a young person? I'm sure when you talk to freshmen, what's your encouragement for them?
Yeah. One thing is to enjoy the experience, enjoy your time in college, enjoy your, all of your everything that you can do, whether it's classes or social or music. Of course, we encourage people to be involved in things like music. I feel sad when someone does band or choir throughout all their high school program and then says, no, I'm going to stop at college. We have a place for you, whether it's a non-auditioned choir like mine, or whether it's the marching band, which is non-auditioned, or if you want a little more challenge, try university singers or wind ensemble or the orchestra. So get involved with something. But I also want to say, don't hurry to get it done. I see so many students who, want to just get out, and I always would tell that to my high school seniors too, as I'm like, you only get one chance to do your high school, senior musical, or one chance to do your undergrad experience. So don't hurry through it, be a good student and do your homework and all of that stuff. But be a good, enjoy your time, and get to know your classmates and your professors, because they might be an in for you later on, like they were for me. You may end up coming back and working with your old professors. So, be kind to them and show respect and make friends in that way of your colleagues and your professors, and be kind to everyone. So that's just a quick little.
No, that's terrific. And, I think every day you are a role model for them as well. So I hope that they see what you have done in your short, young time here, Jason, and follow that path as well.
Yeah, well, we'll see if I'm in the same position you are, like in 30 years, right? It's been Buzz, hasn't it?
It's been 30 years. That's
wow, that's amazing. So thank you, and I love the program that you do, and I'm honored to be able to be on it as an alumni. So thank you for all that you've done for Western in this way, and spreading the knowledge about all of the great alumni that are out there. So I'm honored to be able to be a part of it.
Well, again, thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you to all our viewers and listeners out there. We will continue to have alumni from all of our college departments on the podcast, and we hope that you continue to support our departments and schools here at Western Illinois University. For me, this is my last podcast as host of the next chapter, but I hope that it will continue on in the future. So until I see you next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.